Thanks very much, Chairman, and I welcome the comments of John and Edgar again. It's great to have them with us in a further discussion. Just one statistic that really is impressive is that was referenced earlier by John was regard to the early school leavers and the success we had in this state in reducing considerably the percentage who were leaving school early. And that was as a result of direct interventions. DESH was particularly important, and also second chance education made a difference as well. So it shows that specific interventions do work, and I think it can bring a new belief in education to certain communities, not just individuals and families, but it spreads, and I think it has a great downside effect. Just with regard, I'm one of the people who always believes that and who aspires to United Ireland, but I believe in the meantime we want to work as assiduously as possible the existing political architecture and constitutional architecture we have on this island, and that's to work the Good Friday Agreement. We have 6 implementation bodies. We know Waterways Ireland, we know Tourism Ireland, and the 4 others as well. But alongside, what was agreed as well at that time was that there would be 6 areas identified for cooperation. One of them was education, agriculture, health, and others as well. And I think that was very important. But one of the things that has always disappointed me is that we haven't moved on and grown the number of implementation bodies. And one area that I would argue in the past was that education was an obvious choice in that respect. You take it, I remember when I was at college, there was a sizable number of students from Northern Ireland UCD at that time. And it's very disappointing the number of students from Northern Ireland at 3rd level in our state and vice versa, the small number of students from our state in college in Northern Ireland. There has not been that movement of students that I think would be very beneficial. Would John or Edgar, would you believe that if education was if 3rd level education and probably innovation and research as well, that nobody from a political point of view can have any qualms or concerns about? If we had an implementation body, an extra implementation body dedicated to 3rd level, further and higher education, research and innovation maybe, and deal with the provision of education, research and innovation on an all-Ireland basis, it might help to reduce the problem, particularly for graduates in Northern Ireland who graduate in colleges in Britain and who don't return. Maybe we would keep that pool of skills and expertise and of qualified people on our island, which would contribute to all of the island. So I think it's an area we can talk about United Ireland, what needs to be done. We need to do practical things in the meantime. And I've had a very strong belief that education can be a powerful force in that respect. And I would sincerely hope that some consideration would be given to that particular issue. Edgar, again, and we come from roughly the same area, and we know of the deficiencies and particular challenges that face communities in Cavan and north of us in Fermanagh, Tyrone and Armagh as well. You mentioned, Edgar, the human capital as being hugely important. Could you envisage some major educational development focused on the central border area that could be beneficial and deal with some of the many challenges that we have? You did a paper some years ago, Edgar, and you demonstrated very, very clearly the huge effect that Brexit would have on the central border area and the economy in Cavan and in our neighbouring counties north of the border as well. And unfortunately, that hasn't gone away. So we need specific interventions in those areas. And could there be some thinking outside the box in regard to having some greater enhancement of further education, maybe some research facilities or whatever? But I think the fact that we don't talk about education on an all-Ireland basis is a huge deficiency. And back in the last Dáil, when the bill was going through in regard to the establishment of technological universities, I remember speaking at that time, could we have some of our institutes of education merging with similar institutes or universities north of the border to form alliances and that? I don't think we were bold enough or progressive enough in relation to the potential of developing further and higher education on an all-Ireland basis. So again, both John and Edgar referred to the fact that students who leave, say, the like of Cavan and other rural counties and go to college in Dublin, Cork or whatever, they don't return to the areas by and large where they've come from. Could there be merit in more of our third level courses being delivered locally through the colleges of further education. We know now, sadly, a lot of students didn't get any campus experience due to COVID, etc. But classes have gone on, lectures have taken place. That's not the ideal way for a person to go through third level. I believe there's a huge value in being on campus and meeting up with students. It's not all about classes, as we know, the college life. But could there be more done to provide through colleges, further education colleges and other means of ensuring that people didn't have to go to Dublin, Galway, wherever, if they didn't want to, and if they could source their learning, their third level learning and degree courses through a local medium. So you may keep that talent in the more rural counties. Just to go back to an initial comment I made, I referenced the 6 implementation bodies that were established as part of the Good Friday Agreement. That's other 6 areas for cooperation. Could maybe Edgar or John will come back to it. Would they see merit in the 7th implementation body being established in the whole area of further and higher education innovation to give a structure to the type of issues that we want to see addressed? Like John quite rightly referred to the fact that in the late 60s or early 70s, when the region technical colleges were established, their remit was to be a driver and a major contributor to much needed regional economic development at that time. And they have been hugely important. You quite rightly cited the importance of them attracting particular industries and clusters and providing the skilled people and the people with expertise to service those industries and indeed to lead those industries. My understanding is that the further education colleges were established with a similar remit. And as a person who chaired one of those colleges in its early days, I have to say that one of their great traits and one of their great successes has been that they have improved access to education. It kept a lot of people who post-leaving certificate would not have gone on to an institute of technology or to university. In many instances, then those young people went to the College of Further Education, then they progressed to the IT, the university, whatever. And we all know plenty of them who not alone went on to get primary degrees, but went on to take their masters as well. So the whole area of access progression is hugely important. And would you see merit in a structure being put in place on an all-Ireland basis to try to tackle those particular issues? And again, I regret very much the low numbers, as Edgar said, from Northern Ireland that are in colleges in the south, and similarly the low numbers from the south that are in colleges in the north. There were better participation years ago when the participation rate in general was much lower on both sides of the border. So again, thank you, Cahir League.